the Gemini?
Well, shiver me timbers. Hey y'all, I'm back. My name is Jared. This is the Tipsy Bard, but you know that because it says that on the title. Today, we're talking about The Last of Us, which Rob has never played. It's been 7 years, and he's owned it for 4. So the story opens, it's 2013, and we have our 2 main characters essentially for right now. It opens up with this girl, her name is Sarah. She is waiting for her dad to come home. Her dad is Joel. And he comes home from work, it's his birthday, and she's like, hey, happy birthday, I've got a present for you. And Sarah's like, I don't know, 13 years old or something like that at this time. And so she gives him a gift, and it was a locket? No, it was a watch. And so they, have a happy birthday. And happy birthday. And so they decide to just watch TV and just kind of chill out on the couch. And Sarah falls asleep. And so after a while, and Joel's like, all right, I'm going to take you to bed. So he carries her in his arms upstairs into her bed. After like a couple hours, it's middle of the night, there's a loud disturbance outside the house. And it rustles Sarah awake. She hears it and kind of freaks out. And so she gets up and calls out to her dad and doesn't hear anything. And so she's like, oh, that's weird. And so you're playing as Sarah at this point. And so you kind of look around and you're calling out for your dads. And you kind of go down the hallway, you look in the other rooms, and then you go to eventually to his room, which is still upstairs. And you're calling out, Dad, where are you? And isn't there anywhere. And so you go into his room and you're like, hey, Dad, where are you? And he's not there.
But he's out buying smokes.
You're going to find out what he was doing. But his TV is on, and it's turned to the news channel, but he's not there, so it's a little weird. And on the news comes up this story of this news lady talking about a situation occurring at the hospital, which from their place is like a mile or 2. It's pretty close. You can see it from where they are. And so Sarah's looking at the news and she's watching it, and all of a sudden the news reporter is like screaming like, ah, and then it just like it cuts out, and then boom, the hospital just explodes. And you look out the window, you can literally see the hospital explode. And Sarah's like, what the is going on? And so she goes downstairs and calling out her dad, Dad, where are you? Still nothing.
Did you call him?
Well, and yeah, so she goes downstairs, there's a phone downstairs, and she goes to grab the phone to call her Uncle Tommy because she doesn't know where her dad is, and he had left his phone upstairs. So she goes to pick up the phone, dead. There's nothing. So they got no TV signal, no phone signal, nothing. And so if she wasn't already freaking out now, she's freaking out more. Like, what the hell's going on? So she's calling out her dad, where are you? And then she turns into like their living room, and all of a sudden she sees that the sliding glass door is open, and she stops in her tracks. And her dad, Joel, bursts through the entrance, slams the sliding glass door shut, and tells Sarah to stay back, to stay back and stay safe. And he rustles through the drawer and grabs his revolver, and all of a sudden, just like their neighbor, whatever his name is, I don't remember them actually saying what his name was, but he like slams up against the sliding door and is just like snarling and going like that, and he's just like foaming at the mouth and just like deranged.
Rabies.
Could be. So Joel's like holding Sarah back like this and holding the gun up to his neighbor. He's like, I'm gonna kill you if you burst through my sliding door. And so the neighbor backs up, and Joel starts to lower the gun like, okay, he's not gonna come through. Nope. He just slams right through the glass of this door, falls down, and Joel's like, the hell? And just starts shooting him dead. Sarah is now crying, freaking out.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
That sounds right.
And Joel is trying to figure out what's going on too. And so he tells Sarah, pack your things, we're going. But as they do that, a car pulls up and it's his brother, Tommy. And Tommy's just like, F it, don't worry about anything. Let's go. We got to go now. And so they're like, oh, okay, let's go. And they get in the car and they start going down the neighborhood. They're not the highway yet. They start going down their neighborhood and they start seeing all of their neighbors also escaping, like packing up everything and just getting out. And they eventually get to the highway and it's just gridlocked. Like, you know how California can get, like, even though they have 18 million lanes on their highway, it's just gridlocked. Doesn't matter. It was that. And so they're parked and they can't do anything. And so Joel and Tommy, who are in the front seats, Sarah's in the back just kind of observing, watching everything. And Joel and Tommy are just talking about like what's going on and what they can do. And all of a sudden, just a horde of these maniac, snarling, crazy rabies people, yeah, they just start attacking all the people in their cars. By the way, Skull.
Do they even cheers in The Last of Us or anything?
Nope, it's the apocalypse.
To the Last of Us.
To rabies. They back up and they decide to go through like some back roads. And they go through a town, a nearby town, because they wanna escape. And they start getting into town and they think that was a good idea. And so when they get to the town, they see that the town's just in chaos and everything's just on fire. And cars are crashing everywhere. People are like, ah! They're freaking out. And so they're trying to make their way through town, like weaving between people and all of a sudden they get T-boned. They get T-boned and their car flips. Sarah, who's in the back, she's 13 years old, apparently doesn't think a seatbelt's necessary. So she gets injured in the crash. And her dad, Joel, after coming to, he sees that these rabies people are now attacking the people of the town. And so he's like, eating his own hair, apparently. And so he pulls Sarah out from the wreckage. And he now has to carry her in his arms. So he can't use a weapon. But Tommy, his brother's got his gun. And so he's like leading the charge. Leading the way. And so, oh god, they're going through back alleys to try and get out of the town, and behind them is just a horde of rabies buttholes. And they get to a building, and it's a restaurant, and they were able to get in, but they can't lock it in time. And so Tommy's like Hordoring the door. And he's just like, Hodor, just go, Hodor. And so Joel is still carrying, not Ellie, Sarah, out the other side. And they go down into like a ditch thing to try and get to the outskirts of the town. And they get to a part where they see like an ambulance that has gone off the road, and there's one of those rabies people eating the frickin' medical person just on the floor there.
Having a snack.
Oh, straight up snacking. And so they're like, well, he's occupied, so we're just gonna keep going. And so they keep going, but then the rabies person is like, ooh, fresh snack, and starts going after them. So like, oh god. And so they're trying to escape, and they come upon this lone military soldier who shoots the rabies person dead and saves them. And Joel and Sarah are like, oh, thank you. We're saved. And lone military soldier stops them. He like raises his weapon at them, and he's like, stop right there. And I'm a person, I'll stop you. And so he radios in, hey, I've got two at gunpoint. And they tell him to no go, no pass, no collect 200, and to deaded them, die.
Directly to jail.
Go, yeah, except dead.
Dead jail.
Dead jail. And this is the part that gets me. He's a lone soldier out there. He has no one out there. No one. It's just him. If he had let them go, no one would have known. But then we wouldn't have had this entire game. So, yeah, he decides to follow orders and shoots them. And Joel tries to turn his back to shield his daughter from being shot and doesn't do it in time. He gets shot in the back, but Sarah, his daughter, who's in his arms, gets shot in the abdomen mortally. Is that the right word? She's not gonna make it. She's done. So sad part is Joel's carrying his 13-year-old daughter and she dies right there in his arms. So fast forward 20 years. And if you were to picture like what humans in the United States would do in the event of an apocalypse where some do actually survive, with military still mostly intact, this is pretty much how it would look. It's like very, yeah, exactly. And it's all like garrisoned and very martial law, and you know, it's a really tough life. But it's been 20 years. Where Joel has become this like very cynical, cold, dark person who's just.
Wonder why.
I mean, yeah, lost his daughter on his birthday. World went to.
Did Tommy Bahama die?
No, he's alive.
Okay.
They had a tiff. So they're apart. But Joel has become like this badass Han Solo smuggler, but like 1,000 times better than Han Solo because he can actually smuggle. I ain't lying. Like he can.
You're saying words right now.
I'm saying fighting words, and I'll take it to the grave. But so he's in Boston now, and it's like a quarantine zone, and he has this new partner called Tess. She's not a machine. Her name is Tess. Tess, who's his partner, is out on like some sort of deal mission or whatever. I don't know. And so she returns all sad and is like, Joel, I have to confess, like I just botched this mission. All of my guns got stolen. Joel's rightfully pissed because he's a smuggler. He's like, we gotta go find this. And it's this guy, Robert, who's like a local arms dealer. And they find him after getting through all of his guards or whatever. And they beat him with like an inch of his life. And this is where we start to see Daddy Joel. Like, you don't with Daddy Joel. You get out of his way or he will go through you and kill you and just, you're done. Which he does to Robert. He shoots him twice in the head. So there's that.
Problem solved.
Right? But before he dies, Robert tells him where they could find whatever the stuff they're looking for.
Guns.
That. The guns. And it's with this person, Marlene, who's with the Fireflies. Fireflies. I don't know if you can see that. Fireflies. I like this shirt. And so they encounter Marlene, and they're like, Marlene is the head honcho of the Fireflies. It's not really a good name, but that's the name they chose. It's kind of like a band name, almost.
Maybe
like
they were fans of the show.
Maybe. Maybe.
It's a good show.
That is a good show. Too bad it got canceled.
Thanks, Fox.
So Marlene's like, hey, I got your guns. I'll return it for you. I'll return your guns, but you have to do me a favor. It's a trade, right? That's how we do business. But the trade is that they have to escort Ellie out of Boston, and they have to. Oh God, that headache. It's hitting. They have to escort Ellie to Capitol building nearby. And so it's decided that Joel will take Ellie to the Capitol building. and Tess will go back with Marlene to secure the guns and stuff. And Joel's like, I really don't want to do this. This is stupid. I don't do this. Because he's pissed off old man now. And, well, he's not old. He's daddy. He's like daddy 40s.
Seasoned.
He's seasoned. He's salt, pepper seasoned. So they've met up at the... I just saw two of you for a brief second.
There might be two of me.
He's a Gemini.
Well, shiver me timbers. So they meet up at that safe house, and they make plans to escape out of the city at night, so they don't get caught by the patrol guards that are patrolling the city to make sure that no infected, that's what they call them, the crazies, that no infected get in, but also that no one leaves without permission or knowing what they're doing. Because it's martial law, that's what they're doing. And so while they're doing that, they get stopped by two patrol guards who just happen to come up upon them, and they hold them at gunpoint, and they have to run like some sort of like, I didn't spell. They have to run like a health check on them with like a device thing, right? And so Joel and Tess, they pass no problem. When they go to test Ellie, she freaks out and gets really upset about it and stabs one of the guards with her switchblade, because that's all she has. And this forces Joel and Tess to kill the other guard as well as the one who got stabbed by the switchblade. When that's all done, Tess picks up the device that fell and sees what it says on there. It reads that Ellie is infected.
She's a rabies baby?
She's a rabies baby. But here's the thing. She reveals... She reveals on her arm, like it's like right around here-ish, a bite, but it's like healed, which is weird because usually the cordyceps infection takes like 2 days to fully f*** you, and you become a dude. You become an infected. And, but she's like, no, I've had this bite for like 3 weeks or however long it's been. And Joel is like, there's no way. I've been seeing this for 20 years. I don't believe that. No. You, Ellie. No. And Tess is like, yeah, okay. Makes sense. So Ellie reveals that Marlene believes her to be the cure. And Joel's like, no. I've seen this. It's not a thing. So they make their way to the capital, right? But on their way, they have to make their way through neighborhoods and houses. And okay, so one of the premises with The Last of Us, it's the apocalypse, and you need to retain as much resources as possible. And so you're a scavenger as well, right? So you have to go into like houses and you have to go into houses and scavenge for supplies, right? And so you really don't want to pass up any of those opportunities. But while doing so, you encounter infected, and this is where you start to encounter a special infected called the clickers. And the clickers are like bats.
So it is rabies.
Yeah, it kind of is. That's weird. But I don't know where the thing went. I have a rubber ducky over here.
The fungal butthole?
Oh yeah, right here. So this is rubber ducky fungal butthole. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this is a clicker. Its head is just like...
Is it actually a duck?
This is a duck.
No, I meant like in the game.
No, it's a person. But it's got like a mushroom forming head thing. It's like a cordyceps fungal thing. So they have no face. Because of that, they have to use echolocation to try and find you. So that's why they're called clickers, because all you hear is the click, click. I can't make the sound. The clicking sound. But anyway, so back to Joel and Ellie and Tess. So they encounter clickers. They encounter the infected. But they're badass. They're just like, no, you, we're cool. And so they blast through them all and they make their way to the Capitol. After doing all of that stuff and they get to the Capitol, Tess stops them. Stops Joel while he's walking. Ellie continues to walk on. And Tess is like, I can't join you. I can't continue to go with you. And Joel's like, what are you talking about? We came all this way. Why are you just going to stop now? And she's pissed off and reveals that she got bit in just their last encounters. And Joel's like, are you serious? Like, is this really happening? And she's like, I want you to go. I want you to finish this mission, see it through, get Ellie to the boy band, and see it through. And she'll stand there and have a last defense thing where she'll use herself as a shield. And so because right now they're trying to evade the patrols, like the military patrols that they killed. And so they're like, okay, good luck, even knowing what's going to happen. And as you start to back away into the Capitol, all you hear is the gunshots, and she's just done, dead. Bye, Tess. That sucks for Joel. He lost another one. But now Joel's like into like dick boss mode. He's just like, Ellie, you're gonna do what I tell you to do, because you're 13 and I'm tired of this done. And she's like, okay, sure, I'll do whatever you say. So they're driving, they're leaving Boston, and they're heading towards Pittsburgh. And as they get into Pittsburgh, they get ambushed with the trap by the groups that are there, because they see a car that they probably haven't seen in a while. They're like, hey, resources, like, we can take all this. That was a really dumb thing to do, because Joel's a badass and he just murks all of them. So as they're trying to escape Pittsburgh from this faction who's now after them because, hey, they killed their own, they run into these two guys. One, the older one, his name is Henry, and his younger brother's name's Sam. And they are also trying to escape the city, so they're like, hey, let's team up. We can do it. We can do the thing. But as they try and do a mission, Henry cowers the out, nopes the out, and leaves them high and dry. Leaves Joel and Ellie high and dry, like in the middle of the enemy's camp. Joel's like, if I ever see those guys again, I'm gonna kill them. I mean, it's Joel. I mean, that's why he's established he's a murderer. So, whatever. So they're escaping. Joel and Ellie are escaping, and they fall off a bridge and go into water, and they nearly drown. But lo and behold, they wash up on shore, where it's revealed that Henry, the older one that they met up with earlier, actually is the one who saved them by pulling them out of the water and onto the shore. Joel punches him in the face.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. Like, thanks for saving me. Let me deck you in the face right now, because you're a dick for betraying me. And Sam pulls a gun, the younger brother pulls a gun on Joel, and Henry's like, no. That was the right thing to do. I deserve that. And so they reconcile, and they team up once more. Yay, because it's peoples. And they get to like some sort of radio tower later on in the evening, and they're reminiscing, they're having a good time, being all jolly, and they found some drinks and they're drinking. Like that. And so Henry, Joel, and Ellie are in one room, they're drinking, they're having a good time, they're talking, they're reminiscing memories and stuff. But Sam is in the other room by himself. And Ellie wants to go and hang out with him, so she goes into the room, and after like a minute she screams, and both Joel and Henry come bursting into the room to figure out what... Or no. They They don't burst in the room. God. The people, the kids. Ellie and Sam. They burst back into the room with Sam, like, attacking Ellie, and it's revealed he was bitten.
He was bitten.
He was bitten. Bited. And he's trying to kill Ellie. So Henry, seeing this, kills his brother. He just shoots him once in the head. Immediate PTSD turns the gun onto Joel and Ellie, wanting to kill them, but instead pulls the gun to his own head, pulling the trigger. So it was spring. Now we're in fall. It's been like a couple weeks. I'm drunk. The people talk. The two, Joel and Tommy talk, and Joel fills in Tommy of what he's doing and why he's doing it. He's like, hey, Ellie's been bitten, but she's not. She hasn't turned. She's not infected, even though she is infected. It's a weird situation. So they need to get her to the Firefly Boy band. But before they can finish what they're talking about, because Joel really wants Tommy to take it over, because Joel's just like, he just wants anything to do with it, because he lost Sarah. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And before they can really talk anymore about it, they get attacked by bandits at the power plant thing, and they kill them all. And so they kill them all, but Ellie overhears that Joel wants to pass her off to Tommy, and she gets upset because she's starting to like form this bond with Joel that's a father figure to her, because she has no family. Like, her family got killed by the monsters, the real monsters. So she takes a horse and just runs off, and Tommy and Joel go after her, coming up on this like abandoned ranch. But so Joel goes up to talk to her, and when he goes up to talk to her, Ellie tears into Joel because he's been like projecting onto her that she's Sarah, and she's like, I'm not your daughter. She's dead. I'm not her. And Joel, being the cynical asshole he is, and very cold about the situation, because he has severe PTSD over that. He looks at Ellie dead in the eye and goes, you're not my daughter, and I sure as hell ain't your dad, and we are going our separate ways. On their way, Joel has kind of a change of heart, because he's had time to think about what he said to her, and he realizes that wasn't a very nice thing to say, and wasn't really fair to her either. And so he decides to tell Tommy, don't worry about it. I got it. I'm gonna do the right thing, and I'm gonna see it through. And so Tommy's like, okay, I'm gonna give you the place of where you need to go. It's like in Colorado. They're in outside of Pittsburgh somewhere, and they have to go all the way to Colorado on horseback. So a little bit of time passes. Obviously, it's a far way to go on horseback. But they reach the Colorado location to find this lab. But as they're investigating the lab, they realize that it's been abandoned, and there's dead bodies everywhere, and but there's like, they left like all of their notes and stuff. So they realize after like you go through and like read all the notes and that they abandoned it because they resources. They ran out of resources. And so they're like, okay, no one's here, but we have notes here of like where they possibly are, and so we're gonna go that way. And as they're starting to exit, they hear like another group of survivors enter the fucking building, and they have to fight them because they're fighting Joel and Ellie. And Joel gets thrown off of like the second story railing or whatever, and as he goes down to the ground, gets impaled by a steel beam rod thing, like straight through his back, out through his abdomen. Ow.
Yeah.
And so Ellie, who's again a small 13-year-old girl, has to help him make his way to the horse and has to help him get up on the horse, and they escape. But on their way escaping, Joel succumbs, whatever. He's dying. He falls off the horse, and they have to stop. And Ellie's freaking out, crying. She doesn't know what to do. So it's been some time, and Joel, Ellie's in a snow. And she sees a 12-pointed horny person. And she's like, I need to kill this thing because we need food. So she fires 2 arrows into the thing, but she doesn't kill it. Not yet. As Buzz bleeding. So they go on a bloody trail down to an abandoned warehouse. And it collapses. Not a warehouse. Shack. And dizzy. So it collapses and dies. But there's 2 people who come up who are like, hey, that's our kill. And Ellie's like, no, don't you see my 2 arrows sticking out of its butt? And they're like, yeah, but we were tracking this thing first. And she's like, no. And so she's like raising her bow to them, and then she's like super cautious. She like does it like this. She's like that. And they're like, listen, Linda, listen. We need this thing. And what do you need? What can we give you in exchange? So she's like, I need biotics. And so they give her... Bilbo goes off to get biotics. David stays with her to watch over the buck, and then the buck, because it's dead and decaying, it's like attracting the hordes of infected. And so they're like, alright, let's team up. But Ellie's like, give me your gun because I'm gonna protect us. But that's all she can see. And so then when they go and defend themselves, David pulls out a gun from like his pants pocket thing. It's a
good old pants gun.
Good old pants gun. And Ellie's like, you had another gun? And David's like, yeah, because I'm not a fucking idiot. It's the apocalypse. Stupid kid. But they kill off all the infected. And Butthole reveals that, hey, I'm the person who attacked you and things. And Bilbo comes back and is like, hey, here's the antibiotics. And Ellie's like, oh, I need to get out because they're the bad people. So she goes back to Joel. And Joel's still like dead and dying. Like he's got it's like an open wound, like right here. And it's just like see-through. Just see-through. And she applies the biotics. And she decides to go sleep. She wakes up the next morning, though, to people outside the place. I don't know, the thing. Box. And so she's like, okay, she realizes the people from before. I gotta take them away from Joel so he's not harmed. And so she leaves on horseback and decides that the best thing is to go down the middle of the goddamn center of the town. I couldn't think of the name. Town. Instead of, maybe going on the outskirts or, do something smart like hiding. No. Right through the center of the town on horseback that's not quiet. And so they kill her horse, they capture her, and...
Ghouls?
Yeah?
The ghouls capture her?
No, it's the David people. Bilbo Baggins. And his horde of tiny men. They, but no, so yeah, so she gets captured. Joel wakes up, after 30 minutes. They don't give times. But Joel wakes up and he's like, "Hey, Ellie, where are you?" And I still have a gaping hole in my stomach. And he gets up, gets on his horse and goes to look for her. He's yelling, "Ellie, Ellie, where are you?" At this point, we've established Joel's a straight up murderer. You don't get in his way, he'd just kill you. Dildos. And so Joel goes to look for her. He kills all the people who's standing in his way, except for 2. And he takes them back and interrogates them. And he's like, "Hey, you're gonna tell me where Ellie is, right?" And they're like, "Haha, no, we're not gonna tell you. You ain't bastard." And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make you tell me." And "No, you're not." So he breaks their legs. And then he kills one of them. And he's got the other one he's about to kill. And he's like, "God, no, okay, I get it. I'll tell you where she is." And so he tells Joel, and he's like, "I'm pleading for my life. You're not gonna kill me, right?" I told you, we're buddy. And Joel's like, "No." Bang! And just shoots him dead. So Joel goes after Ellie. Ellie, in the meantime, is now locked up in a cage some swine, pig thing. And for slaughter, because on the table is this human who's getting chopped up into tiny pieces, and David is like, "That's gonna be you. I'm gonna eat you. I'm a cannibal." They're cannibals. There's cannibals now, because it's the apocalypse.
Gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
Survival of the fittest. Fittest?
Yeah.
Fitness?
Fitness.
Survival of fitness. But Ellie, so they throw Ellie onto the butcher block, and as they're about to chop her up into tiny pieces to eat her, Ellie says, "Hey, no, you can't do that, because if you do that, you'll infect all of your people." Oh God. So they're like, "What the are you talking about?" She pulls back her sleeve and she's like, "Here, mother. There's a
Chomp.
There's a chomp." And they're like, "Wait, no, there's no way that's real." And she goes, "Yeah, it's real. I'm infected. If you chop me up, you're gonna infect all of your people." And Bilbo is standing there all flabbergasted, and he's like, "I don't understand." So while they're staggered and surprised, Ellie surprise attacks them and kills them. Or kills Bilbo. And David tries to kill her, but she escapes through the windowsill because she's a little lizard. And so, so she managed to escape, but she's now in this resort town thing, and it's snowy and a blizzard. She has to escape. She gets stuck in a restaurant? There's a restaurant. It's on fire.
Applebee's.
I mean, at this point, probably. It's on fire, so... So it's on fire, and David traps her there. And they're fighting it out, and they end up, knocking each other out. And when they come to, Ellie tries to go for, some sort of weapon or something. And, David is, after he came to, he's, attacking her or whatever. And, oh, yeah, and so she finds, his... This is dark. So she finds his machete that he dropped and hits him with it and makes him go down. Now Ellie starts to go crazy a little bit and gets on top of him and just doesn't stop. Yes. Joel, by this time, makes his way to the restaurant because he can see it's on fire. I mean, you can't miss that.
Can't miss an Applebee's.
He walks in on Ellie, bloody, just going to town on this guy's face with a machete. And so he pulls her off as she lands one last blow, and it sticks in this guy's face, and you can actually see it on screen.
Does he have any face left?
Nope. Nope. It is literally just mush and this blade sticking out. Oh. Hi.
Hi.
Spring? Right? That was winter. So it's actually been like a month or so. We're now into...
Spring.
Yeah. It's like April or something like that. So Joel and Ellie are trying to make their way to the new Fireflies lab, the boy band lab, and they're trying. It's St. Mary's Hospital. And they're trying to make their way there. On their way there, they encounter Jurassic Park. There's giraffes that are wild. There are wild giraffes in the city, in the U.S. And
Zoo.
the entire world's a zoo now. They come up into a building, and like half of the back half of the building is just like destroyed, and one of the giraffes comes up, literally like a scene out of Jurassic Park. The original Jurassic Park comes up and starts to like eat the vines, like right there.
The brontosaurus.
Yeah, that the big, penis-looking thing. And it comes up, and Joel's like, "Hey, do you want to pet the penis?" So they, yeah. Walking penises. Yeah. But, so he's like, "Hey, listen, we don't have to finish this mission. Well, no one knows we're out here. Why don't we just leave?" And Ellie's like, "No, because then all the people who died and everything we've been through up to this point would have been for nothing. I want to see this to the end." And so Joel's like, "Okay." So they move into the opening grounds for the hospital, and it's just filled with like tents and stuff, like you would normally find in a pandemic, like what we're having now, because And they find like some dead bodies and just a whole bunch of supplies left over, and Joel starts to open up to Ellie about his past and what he's been through for the last 20 years, and not all of that detail. So Ellie, it's at this point Ellie presents a picture to Joel. It's a picture of him and his daughter Sarah that she stole from Tommy. And it's at this point we see that Joel starts to overcome his
He grieves. He gets to...
Yeah, he has closure.
Yeah.
He starts to have that closure. He's able to move on from that chapter of his life and is able to focus on his new relationship that's being formed with Jelly. But so they're trying to go through. They can't make their way through. They're blocked. They have to find a different route. And so they go underground because that's smart. And they go underground to progress. But during all of this, Ellie slips and falls into like an current water. She gets swept away. And Joel's like, "Hey, no, come back." And he goes after her. And he pulls her out from the water, and at this point she was drowning, so she's got water in her lungs or whatever. And he starts to try and resuscitate her, but he's pulled off by these two guards who won't let him resuscitate her. and they knock him out. And that's the last we see. So we don't know at the moment if Ellie actually is alive, because she was drowning. So you wake up as Joel, and you're immediately met by Marlene. Surprised, she's there. So Joel is talking to Marlene, and Marlene's like, she's safe, she's okay. We resuscitate her, but now she's going into surgery. And Joel's like, what? Why surgery? Marlene's like, well, because she can make the cure with her poison, with her blood, with her, yes. But Joel knows that the fungus wraps around the brain. So by doing the surgery, Marlene says it will unfortunately kill Ellie. And Joel's like, well, did you get her consent? Because this is 2020. Actually, no, it's like 2033. So they're like far ahead of us, so consent is definitely a thing. But person lean thing is like, no, we're gonna go ahead and do it. Ellie would rather die on the table to make a vaccine with her poison to help humanity than to not, or something. And so Joel's like, no, that's stupid. I don't want you to do that. Ellie is my daughter. I'm gonna save her. And so but Marlene's like, no, I want to throw you out of the hospital. And so on his way out of the hospital being escorted, he just, again, Joel's a murderer. You don't get in his way. They got in his way. It was really stupid. They all died. He makes his way to Ellie, who's on the gown, who's on the table wearing a gown, and she's about to get surgered. And so he breaks in, and the doctor and like people around them are like, what are you doing here? And Joel's like, step away, that's my daughter, you step away. And so he goes and tries to get her, but the doctor, again, very stupid, tries to stop Joel, who's a murderer. Well, we know how that ended for him. Dead. And then the two assassins got deaded too. They're all gone. And Joel grabs Ellie in his arms. Now again, just like reminiscent of the intro when he's carrying Sarah, he's holding Jelly in his arms, and they're trying to escape the hospital, and he's trying to avoid all this gunfire. This time he has the experience, so he can avoid the gunfire because he's like Matrix. And he finds an elevator and gets into the elevator just before he gets obliterated by a hail of bullets. And so they go down underground to a parking garage. And as soon as the garage doors open, the elevator doors open, face McGee is there with her gun pointed at him. And she's like, hey, no, you can still do the right thing. We can make a vaccine. And but then Marlene has to, well, like, that was a good thing to say. You can still do the right thing. That's a good thing to say. And then she just goes and f***s it up by saying that Ellie would eventually be torn to pieces, and she would likely be tortured first before anything. Like, do you really think that's a smart thing to say to someone who just killed your entire force?
Probably not.
Nah.
Oh, no.
Nah, bro. Nah. So, the last thing she says while they're talking, and she's lowering her guard as she does, is that, of course, Joel can still do the right thing. And then it just cuts to the next scene. And what we see next is Joel driving away with Ellie, who's lying in the back seat. And after some time, Ellie kind of stirs awake and she asks Joel, hey, what happened? Like, she doesn't remember anything. The last thing she remembered was falling off of this cliff thing into the water. That's the last thing she remembers. So she's been out for some time. So Joel says that he killed Marlene, obviously, but that the Fireflies had already stopped looking for a cure. Lie. And Joel is doing that so that he can try and protect Ellie so that she can make her own choice later down the line. Ellie, however, goes silent and is disappointed because now she realizes that, indeed, their entire journey up to this point was for nothing. Where we are now, it's now spring, summer, spring. It's still spring. We'll just call it spring. It's like March. Wait, is March before April?
Yes.
Well, okay, let's call it May. So they're traveling back in this car back to Tommy's place, but it's the apocalypse. Parked cars are not taken care of as well as they should be, and so their vehicle breaks down on the way. And so Joel's like, "Hey, we gotta hike it from here. It's only like 2 miles. Whatever, we can do it. We horseback like halfway across the country. We can do it just fine." But Ellie is like lost in thought. She's looking at her bite on her arm. It's now been almost a year. And Ellie, on their way, is like, "Hey, Joel, I need you to tell me what happened. I need to know. I need to know that it wasn't all for nothing." And she mentions everyone who died for them, and she's wondering if she could have done any more. She makes Joel swear that what he said is true, right? About the boy band. and he goes, "Yeah, it's all true. You can trust me. I'm your daddy now." And Ellie's like, "All right, if you say so." And that, my friends, and Rob, that's the end of The Last of Us. Until part 2. Coming soon. I'm gonna do the song. I'm so good. See? So good.
Beautiful.
Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. I have meat all down my face.